Super Lucky Disaster Man. Chapter 50, Boss Mori Finds Out. Akutagawa Yunosuke, this guy, just spoke without thinking, or maybe spoke without fully considering, but he's still too young to understand the other meaning of the word, get a room, and the lobby of the Port Mafia headquarters fell into an eerie silence. Originally, there were still some people murmuring, asking about the situation or exchanging small talk, but now it all stopped for this one silence. At this moment, everyone held their breath, abandoning the human language system, attempting to communicate in the most primitive way, with their eyes. Did you hear that just now? I heard it. I heard it. He was talking about Dazai-sama, wasn't he? Who is that person? Dazai-sama's lover? When did they become lovers? Isn't this the person who caused the logistics to be punished last time? Back then, it was said they were friends. At the moment when everyone exchanged intense gazes with one another, even someone as clueless as Akutagawa Yunosuke noticed the sudden eerie silence around them. After all, even the most oblivious people would notice that there was no longer anyone walking back and forth nearby, sensing that something was off. Not to mention that they were still in a mafia environment, where vigilance was always required. Akutagawa Yunosuke, though it hasn't been long since he was picked up by the Port Mafia, had always been very attentive to changes in his surroundings back when he lived in the slums. This was to prevent anyone from ambushing him or his younger sister, who were still so young. After a few days of being under the high-pressure training of his new mentor, Dazai Osamu, he has now become even more sharp and perceptive. Upon realizing that Komai de Nagito truly posed no threat, he shifted his gaze away, coldly turning his head to scan the surroundings. While people couldn't emotionally connect with one another, but in this instant, in the lobby of the Port Mafia headquarters, everyone except Akutagawa Yunosuke and Komai de Nagito seemed to share the same telepathic response, making the same reaction without prior agreement. Everyone resumed their conversations, continued walking, or go to the receptionist. The lobby became noisy once more, and it seemed as if nobody paid attention to what Akutagawa Yunosuke had said. They all acted as though everything was completely normal, as if the nearly 10 seconds of silence just now had been nothing more than an illusion of Akutagawa Yunosuke's. Akutagawa Yunosuke. He suspiciously glanced around the lobby. The receptionist, while talking with someone at the counter, forced smile and trying to find words to say to that person. Only after Akutagawa Yunosuke's gaze moved away from her direction did she let out a sigh of relief. Komai de Nagito, however, didn't care about the surrounding reactions. He gloomily tucked the book, which had been wrapped up, under his arm, using his right hand to weakly hold his left arm, which seemed to be broken. He said, "Has Akutagawa-kun calmed down yet? If there's nothing more to say, I'd like to go find Dazai-kun." Actually, when it comes to matters concerning Dazai-kun, Akutagawa-kun, you really have no right to ask, do you? Though I don't mind, others might not be as forgiving as me. Akutagawa Yunosuke frowned. Without waiting for him to say anything, Komai de Nagito continued speaking. Perhaps in Akutagawa-kun's view, my not pursuing the matter is because I'm too weak, incapable of doing so. Hahaha, if that's what you think, I really can't refute it. Komai de Nagito's words took over the conversation, instantly leaving Akutagawa Yunosuke a bit annoyed. At this moment, a dignified voice suddenly sounded. Akutagawa-kun is too impulsive. Go to Koyo's place to receive your punishment. Actually, this is also due to Dazai-kun's lack of proper guidance, so let Dazai-kun apologize on behalf of Akutagawa-kun. Komai de-kun, it's rare for you to come here, and yet you encounter such a situation. As the boss, I do feel a bit uneasy about it. Boss Mori. Boss. Everyone in the lobby knelt upon seeing Mori Ogai, including Akutagawa Yunosuke. There were no exceptions. For the moment, only Mori Ogai, Ozaki Koyo behind him, and Komai de Nagito remained standing. This was not the first time Komai de Nagito had seen such a display. When the cruise ship stopped at Yokohama port previously and the port mafia came to greet Mori Ogai, the scene had been even grander, so he remained perfectly calm, with no intention of kneeling. After all, he wasn't a member of the port mafia, he was a guest. Mori Ogai hadn't come specifically because of Komai de Nagito, in fact, he had arrived quite some time ago. He simply felt there was something interesting going on and thus didn't immediately step forward. Ozaki Koyo had always been prepared, not merely watching from the sidelines. When Akutagawa Yunosuke ignored Dazai Osamu's friend and directly attacked Komaeda Nagito, Ozaki Koyo had to step in. Unexpectedly, Komaeda Nagito's luck was so good that he managed to narrowly escape. At that time, Mori Ogai's mind began once again to frantically analyze Komaeda Nagito's data, becoming even more intrigued by Komaeda Nagito's luck. In the end, before he could witness anything further himself, Akutagawa Yunosuke suddenly made an astonishing statement, the impact of which was too shocking and severely affected Port Mafia's work efficiency. Akutagawa Yunosuke mentioned the staying in the hotel together incident, and, in fact, Mori Ogai had already heard about it during the regular report. He knew exactly what the truth was. Because, according to Komaeda Nagito, Dazai Osamu was busy attempting suicide and not answering calls, Mori Ogai became very worried that the next day Dazai Osamu would use recuperation as an excuse to continue his passive slacking off. Therefore, he assigned the diligent Akutagawa Yunosuke to pick up Dazai Osamu. What? Which hotel? If Dazai Osamu could investigate it easily, so how could he not know? In short, Mori Ogai clearly understood the causes and effects, but when he heard Akutagawa Yunosuke's summary, he still almost choked on his own saliva. Even Mori Ogai behaves like this, so it's needless to say Ozaki Koyo who wasn't in the know. At that time, this usually unflinching Port Mafia executive covered her mouth with the sleeve of her kimono, widened her eyes, and looked toward Komaeda Nagito in disbelief. When Dazai-kun mentioned they were friends last time, Komaeda-kun was still objecting. Are young people progressing this quickly nowadays? The human form ability Elise revealed a sympathetic look, but to take a liking to Dazai, does this guy have some sort of eye problem? Or did he get tangled up by Dazai? How pitiful ah! Mori Ogai coughed a few times, finally managing to save himself. No, there's a misunderstanding here. Why did you all so naturally accept this explanation? Dazai-kun and Komaeda-kun are both men, ah. Did he set up the appropriate response for Elise? Damn it. He didn't think it through. Ozaki Koyo averted her gaze. In the face of true love, gender is not an issue. Honestly, with Dazai-kun's appearance, I feel that as long as personalities match well, Dazai-kun wouldn't care about gender. Elise responded concisely, because whatever Dazai does is never surprising. Mori Ogai remained silent for a moment. You all make a valid point. But do you really think Dazai could find a lover? He feels that Dazai is destined to be lonely for life. Unless Dazai Osamu seriously plans to pick those matchmaking candidates, otherwise finding someone who truly shares his feelings is absolutely impossible. Unable to find someone who resonates with himself, Mori Ogai feels very lonely. However, no matter what the relationship between Komaeda Nagito and Dazai Osamu actually is, it doesn't affect Mori Ogai's interest in Komaeda Nagito. Therefore, he now steps out to make peace, preventing Akutagawa Yunosuke from escalating things further. Komaeda Nagito treated Mori Ogai with much more politeness this time, at least his words didn't sound like adding fuel to the fire with sarcasm. He even spoke up for Akutagawa Yunosuke. Long time no see, Mori-san. I think the misunderstanding between Akutagawa-kun and me is just a small one, and doesn't yet warrant punishment. Mori Ogai glanced at Komaeda Nagito's hands. Having a guest suffer such misfortune is not the way the Port Mafia treats guests. Akutagawa-kun's lack of proper education is Dazai-kun's fault, and this is a matter within our Port Mafia. I understand your sentiments, Komaeda-kun, but there's no need to say more. Boss. Akutagawa Yunosuke had no objections to his own punishment, but he didn't want Dazai Osamu to bear an unjust reprimand because of him. Dazai-san wasn't wrong, it was me. Calm down, Akutagawa-kun, Mori Ogai said nonchalantly. Koyo, he's yours. Understood. Ozaki Koyo stepped in front of Akutagawa Yunosuke. Akutagawa-kun, come with me. Akutagawa Yunosuke could not repeatedly defy the boss's orders in front of everyone, so he obediently stood behind Ozaki Koyo. Moriogai, in turn, said kindly to Komaeda Nagito, "Let me take a look at your hand. Don't judge me by my appearance, I used to be a doctor, you know." Komaeda Nagito was also not polite, nodding his head while sweating coldly, but his mind was still spinning quickly. In this world, Moriogai is also a doctor. Moriogai had no idea how much his words make Komaeda Nagito think. He brought Komaeda Nagito to the sofa in the lobby, sat down, and began to examine Komaeda Nagito, while someone quickly brought over the med kit. The sharp pain from the arm had passed, and now there was only a dull ache. When Moriogai squeezed it, Komaeda Nagito, already somewhat accustomed to it, momentarily felt his brain go blank from the pain. Moriogai keenly noticed Komaeda Nagito's body suddenly tremble, and belatedly realized that this child's ability to endure pain was different from the Port Mafia's members and those on the battlefield back then. He asked with concern, "Do you need a painkiller?" His gaze shifted to the side, and the receptionist nervously replied, "Boss, we only have anesthetic needles here. Should I have someone get a painkiller?" Normally, if injured, one would go directly to the infirmary. Asking for treatment directly in the lobby, it's common to avoid using slow-acting painkillers. If really necessary, someone could take a trip to get them in time. It's better to save the space for the mini fridge, which stores various medicines that need cold preservation, more essential than painkillers. Being reminded like this, Komaeda Nagito suddenly thought of something, breaking out in a cold sweat, and said, "In the left pocket of my jacket, there's a painkiller." Not all painkillers are suitable for this kind of situation, but Moriogai did not refuse. Being close, he simply reached out to search for it. Because of his previous experience as a doctor, after getting the medicine, he instinctively glanced at it first to prevent any future drug interactions. This stringent medicine had no packaging, but, as usual, the label bore the name of the drug to prevent any errors. Moriogai's hand paused as he held the medicine. The label on this. It's true that there are similar ones on the market, but outsiders wouldn't understand. Just by touching the embossed serial number, he understood clearly, this isn't the type sold outside but rather the kind he had once encountered while serving as a military doctor, used internally, and most likely the latest version. In fact, many items are initially military grade. Only after they are upgraded to a new version can the obsolete version be released to the public, primarily to prevent organizations with ill intent from acquiring and deciphering military-grade equipment through civilian purchases. The pharmaceuticals, although not as strictly controlled by advanced technology, do not have a significant impact on the development of society. Under such circumstances, the relevant departments, without a need to claim achievements, are not too proactive in expanding. Moreover, after the war ended, research in various fields became less urgent, and the frequency of innovation also slowed down. This painkiller is an example. It's available on the market, and the formulation is almost the same as it was 5 or 6 years ago. This drug has 3 advantages: fast effect, wide range of applications, and difficult to develop resistance to it, especially the latter two, which are really impressive. The types of pain require different types of painkillers, and overuse will lead to drug resistance, resulting in decreased effectiveness. The main goal of developing this painkiller is to maximize its usage range, so it won't be necessary to switch to another painkiller just because someone becomes resistant to it. Such switching would be really troublesome. Therefore, for military doctors, this drug is extremely useful and has made a deep impression. However, considering the issue of battlefield consumption, later on, it was directly replaced with easy-to-addict painkillers. Moriogai hadn't prescribed this drug to patients for a while. Where did Komaeda Nagito get this painkiller from? Moriogai kept his expression unchanged, hiding this doubt in his heart, and then had the receptionist poured water for Komaeda Nagito, allowing him to take the painkiller. This medicine seemed to work very quickly, even faster than the version he used back when he was in the military. In no time, Komaeda Nagito's pained expression eased down. Of course, Mori Ogai couldn't just wait for the medicine to take effect. He used a rather skillful technique to carefully examine Komai de Nagito without increasing the pain. It seems to be a bone fracture. Sounds a bit better than a broken bone. The receptionist was very perceptive and, after the previous incident where painkillers were unavailable, she immediately asked another colleague to send an email. After the colleague received it, a call was made to the medical department, which promptly delivered the relevant supplies to the lobby. Those arriving late didn't know what happened. When passing by the lobby today and seeing this extravagant scene, they tried their best to look straight ahead, resisting the urge to turn and look at the corner where Boss Mori was. His intentions were very clear, telling everyone to continue their tasks and not stand around watching. So, they could only bow in the distance and sneak a glance at the situation. Boss Mori actually bandaged an outsider himself. Who is that guy? Sheesh. Don't ask here. We'll talk about it later. Mori Ogai helped Komai de Nagito set his dislocated wrist bone back into its original position, immobilized it, and bandaged it well. Then, just like a normal doctor, he gave detailed instructions, even modestly saying, I haven't treated an injury for quite a while. If you're not at ease, it's best to go to the hospital for another checkup. Komai de Nagito wasn't exactly skilled at treating injuries, but because he had extensive experience with dislocations, fractures, and broken bones, his observation skills were quite good. He could immediately tell from Mori Ogai's technique that the other was very familiar with it. It was the proper textbook technique from the medical academy, not some backyard technique learned by a self-taught black market doctor, so he was quite reassured. Of course I trust Mori-san. If he hadn't had that confidence, Mori Ogai wouldn't have proactively taken the job from the start. Mori Ogai didn't modestly dismiss it either, as he knew his own level, said a few more words, and then stood up. I'll take you to find Dazai-kun. No, how could I be so shameless as to trouble Mori-san like this? Komai de Nagito instinctively stood up to refuse, waving his hand, but forgot that there was still a gift package on his knee, which immediately fell to the ground. Mori Ogai swiftly caught it, and as he touched the wrapping paper, he instinctively gave it a pinch to check its contents. Is this a gift for Dazai-kun? Komai de Nagito first thanked Mori Ogai for his help, then skipped over the question without answering, only saying, it's a book. I see. Mori Ogai wasn't surprised in the slightest and just said, the wrapping paper is a bit torn. Do you need to rewrap it? Komai de Nagito shook his head. No need to trouble Mori-san, I'll pack up a bit myself later. Mori Ogai didn't insist, he waved his subordinates away, leaving him alone with Komai de Nagito as they went up the elevator. What kind of book are you gifting? A novel from Natsume Soseki-sensei. Mori Ogai smiled and said, Komai-de-kun really likes Natsume-sensei, doesn't he? I do. The painkiller's effect was very good, and Komai de Nagito had already forgotten the pain, unable to stop himself from gushing. The Japanese literary world relies entirely on sensei's salvation. It's a pity that sensei's works are still too few. If there were more, the difference between modern textbooks and the classics wouldn't be so large. Mori Ogai casually asked, Natsume-sensei is really strict, isn't he? How could that be? Sensei is really... Komai de Nagito suddenly went from a fanatical state to realizing something wasn't right, but he pretended not to notice and continued speaking. From the words, you can feel that sensei is a gentle person. Ha ha ha, well, maybe my understanding differs from yours. Mori Ogai also acted as if he hadn't noticed Komai de Nagito's slip of the tongue, and continued the topic. Alright, Dazai-kun is on this floor. This isn't your first time here, is it? Yeah. Komai de Nagito said flatly, before, I was unfortunately affected by an ability, and I came here to ask Dazai-kun to help me remove it. Actually, just now downstairs, I said that there was an issue with Dazai-kun's way of educating Akutagawa-kun, and since Akutagawa-kun was punished, he couldn't escape the consequences either. But Komai-de-kun, as a guest, was injured. If I also reprimanded Dazai-kun, making you come here for nothing, it would feel a bit too much. Mori Ogai spoke with a kindly understanding expression, so, I didn't do anything to punish Dazai-kun. If Komai-de-kun wants to find Dazai-kun, go ahead. Mori-san, you really are a good boss. Komaeda Nagito said with admiration, Dazai-kun is truly lucky to have a superior like you. Mori Ogai. Actually, to be honest, he never imagined that one day he would receive such an evaluation. If Dazai Osamu heard these words, he would definitely throw up on the spot. Mori Ogai's smile stiffened a bit as he said, I won't be coming in, his office is at the second door. Alright, thank you, Mori-san. Komaeda Nagito politely thanked him and then took his leave. At almost the same moment, as an intelligence officer on a mission, Sakaguchi Ango, who had been working overtime to attend Oda Sakanosuke's celebration, finally managed to retrieve the intel at the headquarters, stepped into the lobby, and immediately found the atmosphere to be quite unusual. Anxiety, but a very strange kind. A bit impatient yet filled with a mysterious atmosphere. Did you already know? I knew, but is this something we can discuss now? Didn't Ozaki-sama leave without telling us to keep quiet? I guess it's okay to talk about it a bit, right? The logistics department was really punished that time. Akutagawa-sama also got punished, didn't he? No, the logistics department was punished for revealing an executive's personal matters. Akutagawa-sama was punished for injuring a guest, but come to think of it, why is the boss being so polite to that kid? Hey! Use more polite language, that's not an ordinary person, that's a friend of that esteemed one. Sakaguchi Ango heard this and didn't quite understand, but from keywords like, that logistic incident before, Akutagawa, executive's personal matter, and guest, he speculated that the decrease in the port mafia's work efficiency was probably related to Dazai Osamu. He adjusted his glasses, didn't intend to ask anyone directly in the lobby, but instead returned to his office, and then asked. Do you know what happened in the lobby today? Being part of the intelligence department, naturally, Sakaguchi Ango's colleagues were also intel agents. If they didn't know about something this big, then it would be better to resign, but knowing this many secrets, resignation wasn't an option. At best, they'd live under surveillance by the port mafia. Got it. A colleague of Sakaguchi Ango said, Dazai-sama's direct subordinate, Akutagawa Yunosuke, openly announced in the lobby that some outsider named Komaeda Nagito, who had come looking for Dazai-sama, that the two had gotten a room together. Pfft. Cough cough cough. Back at the office, Sakaguchi Ango had just taken a sip of water and ended up spitting it out. What? That's right, that Komaeda Nagito, the one Dazai-sama escorted home twice, that Komaeda Nagito. Akutagawa said he and Dazai-sama get a room together. Though I feel that Akutagawa's meaning of get a room isn't that meaning. Sakaguchi Ango's face looked horrified. Right, I also feel it's not that meaning. His thoughts were truly too dirty. What's wrong with getting a room normally? A colleague shrugged, but since Akutagawa is Dazai-sama's direct subordinate, saying such things doesn't look very good. Moreover, not everyone would think of which meaning Akutagawa intended. So I think Dazai-sama's reputation will still be affected. That's for sure. However, boss. Sakaguchi Ango suddenly became alert. What about the boss? The colleague said, Akutagawa injured that Komaeda, but the boss personally bandaged him, and they were talking and laughing as the boss sent him to meet Dazai-sama. Maybe we'll soon have that guy as a colleague. Sakaguchi Ango, I feel that's unlikely. No, tonight I must ask Dazai, what on earth is all this nonsense? At the same time, as the person involved but isolated from the related events due to being busy with work, Dazai Osamu finally waited for Komaeda Nagito in the office. You're so late, what happened? Dazai Osamu, while grumbling, lifted his head, his gaze stopping on Komaeda Nagito's well-bandaged wrist with a start. He noticed the familiar knotting of the bandages, and his expression turned cold. Why is it like this? Chapter 50 End.